to the National Urban League Digital Career Success Series, Dialogue on Diversity. My name is Kenneth L. Johnson. I'm President and Diversity Recruiter at East Coast Executives. I am a Forbes Career Coach, Google Learning Center Facilitator, and the host of the Career Seekers Show on WPPM 106.5 in Philadelphia. I welcome everyone today basically to the Dialogue on Diversity event, where I will be the host and our guest will be Deb Sinta of Tyson Foods. I'm really excited about this conversation. You know, workplace demographics have shifted in global markets as they emerge, and workplace diversity inches closer to becoming a business necessity instead of a banner that companies wave to show their commitment to embracing difference and change. Employees reap tangible benefits and intangible benefits from workplace diversity. And this is going to be a big piece of our conversation as we speak with a diversity and inclusion leader, Deb Sinta. And I'm hoping what we'll get from this conversation is an understanding of why companies' diversity and inclusion missions are basically a blueprint for real business success from both sides, the employee and the organization. And also, I'd like to kind of get into how individual employees can add value to a company's diversity and inclusion mission. And really, at the end, we'll go into sharing what separates Tyson Foods from other companies. And we'll also share some opportunities that exist with Tyson. So I'm excited. This is a great opportunity for everybody that is tuned in today. So I'd like to begin this process now by introducing our guest and telling you a little bit about her. Her name is Deb Sinta. She is responsible for developing organization-wide talent strategies that align with and enable organizational culture. She drives transformational imperatives focused on maximizing performance, excellence, and enabling individual and team development, ensuring an environment of diversity and inclusion, and building team member capabilities for business success. Prior to joining Tyson Foods, Deb was Vice President of Human Resources at Mark Anthony Brands, the Mike's Lemonade Company. Deb grew up in the UK and earned her degree at King Egbert College. We may have her speak on that a little later as well. That's located in Sheffield, England. She holds multiple certifications, MBTI, Big Five, PDI, DISC, and master certifications in multiple leadership programs. She is also a graduate of Link Global Institute of Leadership Development. And all in all, she's just a diversity and inclusion pro that has been responsible for creating programs that really lead to her organization being named as one of the top companies for diversity and inclusion. We're excited to have her. Deb, are you with us?
I'm here, Ken. Thanks for the intro.
Indeed. I'm really glad to have you. I know that was my intro, but I guess you can tell the audience a little more about your background and what it is that you do at Tyson. That'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. So as you said very well, I am leading talent and culture for Tyson. So basically what that means is I set enterprise talent strategy for our 125,000 team member organization, which includes everything end to end from the talent standpoint. So talent management, performance management, learning and development, team member engagement, talent acquisition, and of course, inclusion and diversity. So I have the gamut there. And as I say often, I have the best job in the company.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah. Before Tyson, I have had multiple different roles, as you mentioned, with different organizations around HR and organizational development, and did about 12 years in consulting, also with Global Innovations, which is now part of Korn Ferry, doing strategic consulting for different organizations in the org development and HR space. So I've had a lot of years of experience in the talent field, inclusive of inclusion and diversity. I'm really excited to be here to talk about the topic of diversity because I truly do believe diversity is a differentiator. I think it's a differentiator for Tyson Foods. At Tyson, we talk about raising expectations for how much good food can do. And as part of that, we talk a lot about how much good people can do.
Sure.
And we truly do value the uniqueness of the different background, skills, capabilities, and contributions of all of our team members and all of our other stakeholders. So this is a big ticket topic from my perspective.
Now you speak about inclusion and diversity. That's just an interesting take. As I was reading through some information, and I know people typically speak about diversity, equity, and inclusion, or diversity and inclusion, but you guys kind of threw the inclusion piece first. Can you elaborate on that a little for me?
Yeah, that was an intentional flip that we made, and some of it based on research and stuff that I had read, but mostly based on experience. I think that the need for diversity in business, in some ways, has run a course. There's a perspective that you get to a point where you've got your numbers and you're sort of doing what you need to do to be diverse.
Sure.
And you know, the fact is, it never ends. Diversity, the definition of diversity continues to change.
Yes.
Today, right? So what we call diversity now is very different than, you know, how we looked at it 10 years ago. I think that a better umbrella is inclusion. And truly, if we have, diversity is a fact of life. Inclusion is a choice.
Right. Okay.
And
Okay.
I think if we, as organizations and as individuals, we can only control our own actions. So we choose every day whether to be inclusive or not. We don't choose whether to be diverse or not.
You know, I think that's great. I know you guys, what did you mention? 125,000 employees, was that the number?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, you will always be chasing the numbers. So it's really important to focus in on the inclusion, because no matter if you have 1 or 1,000, you want people to seem or feel like they are of value and adding value. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Exactly, yeah.
So I wanted to get into this real quick. So Tyson's pretty much taken a proactive approach to workplace diversity in general. And pretty much across the board, even on your board of directors as compared to other larger organizations in your sector, you guys have had success in identifying and having a really good representation on your board. So congratulations on recently being recognized by the Human Rights Campaign in the category of best places to work. From your standpoint, what do you credit that success?
I would probably say off the top of my head, commitment and tenacity. There's definitely a commitment to doing the right thing and getting results the right way. And actually that's one of the team behaviors that we value and focus in on at Tyson Foods, is the idea of doing great business, but doing it in the right way. We have, I think we have been and we will continue to strive for better versus perfect. It's all about getting better each day. We know that we're not where we want to be in the realm of inclusion and diversity. There's a lot of work to do. I think that we have been recognized recently for progress, which we very much appreciate, because it really is all about just getting better, you know, day over day. The recognition from the Human Rights Campaign was in relation to something called the Corporate Equity Index, which was specific to how we create an inclusive environment for people in the LGBTQ community, and what we're doing to protect and promote their human rights, which is a big deal for us. We've, in the course of the last 3 years, gone from a 30%, 30 out of 100 score is where we started 4 years ago, up to 100.
Wow.
And last year, back down a little bit to 90 based on some legislation and policy changes, but we're very proud of that progress. We also got recognized this year by Diversity Inc. for notable progress. So although we're not on their top list yet, and I say yet very intentionally, we do appreciate the fact that they actually called us out in recognizing the progress that we've made over the course of the last few years.
Well, kudos and continued success for that. That's really important stuff. Wow, those numbers on that index from 30 to 100, that's amazing in a 4-year window. So
Yes.
I know that takes a lot of work from a lot of people and some buy-in. So just that approach in general rings true to me, because I noticed that Tyson Foods president and CEO, Noel White, has taken the pledge and joined the CEO for Diversity and Inclusion Action Initiative. Tell us about kind of what that means to your organization to see that commitment coming from the C-suite.
Yeah, we've got huge commitment from the C-suite, not just Noel, our CEO, but also our chairman, John Tyson, are extremely passionate about this topic of inclusion and diversity. We have many conversations about what we're doing, what we need to do, what we should be doing, what we could be doing. And they've been extremely supportive and committed, even down to the fact that when we develop our diversity strategy, the Noel and the C-level executives, our enterprise leadership team, helped us author that strategy. So it wasn't a situation where they said, Deb, go build a strategy and we'll sign off on it. They very much wanted to be contributors to that, and they really did help design that. And I think that there is a belief that this starts at the top of the house. The CEO pledge was a great, it's a great organization. They're doing amazing work. It was great to be one of the early adopters with that group.
Yes.
Signing that pledge about 2 years ago, and then looking back at the progress and the impact we've been able to make through commitments we made in that pledge, whether it's amping up our BRGs or benchmarking more externally around diversity, looking at all of the things we can do. And actually, interestingly enough, Noel recently signed a new pledge, which is called the Valued 500. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I am not. I'm writing that down.
They have a similar kind of pledge relative to people with disabilities.
Okay.
So their pledge is to improve the, sort of working conditions and inclusion of team members with disabilities, which we were more than thrilled to sign up for, as we actually recently, in the last year, have put together our first disabilities BRG. That's our newest and most recent of our business resource groups. Obviously, great to get involved with the Value 500. What I like about these efforts is that it's all about raising the impact of corporations, raising the awareness and impact. And I think that as large corporations, it's really, we are really beholden to make things better.
Okay.
And we can't rely on government and, society just to make that improvement. So I think as CEOs and as leaders of organizations, we've got to speak up and sign up for these kind of things, because that's the way you move the needle.
In particular, the CEO for Diversity and Inclusion Action Initiative, what caught me about that particular initiative is that it kind of focused in on, you always hear about companies speaking about diversity and inclusion on how it kind of improves the bottom line, but that's a real tie-in to social impact. What is the diversity and inclusion that your organization doing in your community? And that's where I thought that really was unique and added value. I commend everyone that's involved. There's a lot of people involved. I'm looking forward to seeing how that unwraps and packages out.
Yeah, they're doing some great work. It's been interesting to see. They had last year a mobile exhibit on unconscious bias, okay, which came actually to our Tyson headquarters. It was a giant bus with all of these interactive exhibits around unconscious bias. So our team members were able to go out and go through this bus and experience through virtual reality and things, some kind of education around unconscious bias. So things like that, just raising awareness, it's great, the work that they're doing.
Outstanding. So I'm looking at some of the questions that are coming in, Deb. So we have a very active audience. So I'm excited about that. And thanks everyone for the questions. Keep them coming. We're going to try to get to quite a few of them. If you're listening to this on Facebook, please like and share this information. It's not too late for other people to kind of come in and sharing the conversation that we're having here, the National Urban League Jobs Network, and Deb Sinta from Tyson Foods. Deb, we kind of got into our HR, our diversity practitioner talk, and we had some questions here about what are BRGs. So I want to discuss inclusion and diversity in the Tyson employee ranks, right? But you have several active BRGs, business resource groups within the organization. As some companies have eliminated these subsets, Tyson appears to embrace them. Would you explain, one, what BRGs are, and then the organizational purpose to our Digital Career Success Series audience? But I'd also like to kind of have you share some insight on BRGs specifically at Tyson as well, and how you suggest individuals on the webinar go about launching or exploring BRGs. So I know that's a lot, so let's just start here. Explain to our audience what BRGs are.
Yeah, so BRGs in our kind of vernacular are business resource groups. They've been referred to, I think, as employee resource groups in the past. Yes. And back a few years ago, they were more often referred to as affinity groups. I think in the beginning, it was more about a resource or a network for the team members to be able to connect with people with maybe like-minded people in, for underrepresented groups, whatever those groups might be. We consciously have evolved our BRGs to business resource groups because we believe that the affinity and networking and support side of the coin is incredibly important, will continue to be. But there's another side of the coin, which is business impact. And we really want to leverage these business groups to help us be better as a company, whether it's about bettering our employee engagement or our team member retention, or bettering our products. We often bring our BRGs in to give feedback on new product innovation and that sort of thing, because they represent, in a lot of cases, the consumer that we're trying to create for. So that's how we look at BRGs.
Okay. All right. So just in how you guys look at them, I'm looking at some of the questions here, and people want to know how they would go about even starting a BRG at their organization, if you have any advice and or success stories that you can share.
Yeah, I mean, I think that fundamentally the best BRGs are grassroots formed, meaning it's a group of team members coming together and saying, this is important to us and we want to contribute in this way. Less so than a sort of mandated, we're going to set up, 5 BRGs and this is what they need to be. I think, though, from a corporate level, the support is important too. So I think what we have found is, number one, you got to figure out what it is that matters to your team. Who are the groups that are underrepresented within your group, and what is the pull for this type of engagement for them? Then giving them a framework to work within. So we talk about 3 distinct pillars that our BRGs are focused on. One is team member experience. So it's about developing our team members and kind of helping them be and stay engaged and develop a career at Tyson. The second pillar is around community. So that might be more, what are we doing in our communities and giving back? And then the third pillar is about business impact. So what are the groups doing to make our business better? And in a lot of cases, I think the draw for people is, this is a great way to get leadership exposure and experience for team members that maybe aren't in leadership positions, to kind of raise their hand and be a part of something where they can play a leadership role, they can manage a budget, they can run projects and programs and that sort of thing. So it is a great development opportunity for people. So, but I would say overall, you know, grassroots, figure out what's most important to the team. Don't try and boil the ocean. Start small, and then provide the framework and the support to help them be successful.
Yeah, so speaking about being successful, so I know as I was reviewing the Tyson website, I came across information about the Leaders of Tomorrow BRG group there. And I thought it was interesting because I know often employees of underrepresented groups believe that there are limited opportunities that exist for them, one, to gain internal exposure, but also to advance within an organization based on that exposure. So your Leaders of Tomorrow BRG, can you tell me a little bit about how they support diverse individuals and just, you know, with sponsorship and mentorship opportunities internally?
Yeah, so the Leaders of Tomorrow are our sort of young professional, if you will, group, although all of our BRGs are inclusive of everybody. So even I am a member of the Leaders of Tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Clearly, I'm not a young professional anymore. But the Leaders of Tomorrow is a great example of a BRG that has had a lot of success and focus on the development opportunities. Each of our BRGs has an executive champion and an executive sponsor. The champion is from our C-suite.
Okay.
So for each BRG, there's a C-level person aligned with that group. And then the executive sponsor is usually at a VP or above level. So these leaders who maybe some early in career are getting exposure to leadership that perhaps they wouldn't have had in their day job. There's also been some great partnerships with some educational institutions, University of Arkansas and DePaul in Chicago. We're working with to provide discounted MBA opportunities for our team members to be a part of.
That's great.
So that they can do that, you know, in their, you know, free time and still work. So I think that, you know, the BRGs, there is some infrastructure that will allow for leadership development. We do a lot of programming things like mentoring circles is one of the things that our women's BRG launched a couple of years ago. Again, giving these team members exposure to leaders in our business that they may or may not interact with on a day-to-day basis.
Excellent.
We do a lot of education too. So some of the educational programming, last week we had a keynote speaker come in with the Network of Executive Women who talked to us about her career path. So I think that the development opportunities are very central to what the BRGs are doing.
Okay, great. So I want to get into this because we have some great questions coming. We have Terry who chimed in and she asked this question and she said, this is for Deb Sinta. Do you have any advice to smaller companies that haven't adopted a committee or a devoted department to inclusion, but aren't sure where to start?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think you mentioned my time at Mike's Hard Lemonade.
Yes.
That's a small company, a private company, about 1,000 team members when I was there. And they had no BRGs when I joined.
Wow.
And we actually formed a women's BRG and sort of evolved the idea over time with even a small group. So I think that with first of all, getting alignment at the leadership level with what we're trying to do from an inclusion standpoint, and having some alignment about the benefits of BRGs at that senior level is really important. Doesn't mean you have to have a chief diversity officer or somebody who's in charge of this stuff. In fact, I'd probably argue that when you make it one person's job, it ends up being nobody's job.
I got you.
But I think that, you know, engaging at the C level, making sure that that leadership group is supportive and understand the benefits of doing this type of engagement, and then engaging the people who have a passion for it. it's interesting to see, if you reach out, what people get really, fired up about. Those are the best ambassadors for this. So being an HR professional isn't necessarily the be all end all for running these things. I've seen some of the best examples of BRG leadership and diversity leadership, frankly, coming from our business leaders. So I'd start there.
I think that's an interesting fact. I was having a conversation earlier this week with an individual that's looking to get into the D&I space with a company, and she doesn't necessarily have that background on her resume. And one of my suggestions was that she kind of focus in on where she's at internally and just be proactive and waving the flag for, diversity and inclusion at her current organization and kind of positioning herself as the go-to person there. I've actually seen opportunities created and job titles created for people that are doing the work internally because they're passionate about it.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'd agree.
All right, great. Okay, so I have just a quick question here. This is from Alberta. She wants to know how many BRGs are at Tyson. Are you familiar?
Yeah, we have 6. We have our Disability and Accessibility Awareness BRG. We have a Women's BRG. We have a Veterans BRG. We have our Leaders of Tomorrow, which is our young professionals, our Pride group, and our Multicultural BRG.
Great.
6
wow. That's outstanding. Okay, all right. So you've been on the front lines, creating, designing, implementing diversity and inclusion programs. What would you say has been the most difficult aspect of implementing a D&I program for such a large, multi-tiered organization like Tyson Foods?
I think number one would be scale. As I mentioned, we've got 120,000 plus team members in hundreds of different locations across North America and globally. So anything that I do in the talent space, the first question I have to ask is, can I scale this successfully?
Okay.
And if not, how do I fix that? It's hard to have an inclusion program that's exclusive, right? It becomes it's not a good thing that if you put a program in place that everyone can't participate in, particularly if it's a program around inclusion. So scale would be one thing, and geography is a part of that, right? So we've got team members in our plants all over the place who not only are in plant locations, meaning that they're in, different geographies, they're in different time zones. Some of them are working the 3rd shift, right? They can't participate in a training that happens, in the middle of the day.
Sure.
So we have to think about the diversity of geography. And then I guess the second thing that makes it difficult is sustainability. So how do you, once you start something, you have to have a plan for how it's going to continue. One of the big things that we've been working on in the last couple of years with our BRGs is succession planning.
Okay.
Having a pipeline of leaders ready to pick up the baton, if you will, as things change, is another key. So, and then I think from a D&I program standpoint, the other thing I'd say is just share of mind. Our business leaders have a lot on their plate, and I'm sure everyone on this webinar can relate. There's changing priorities, there's things happening all the time, there's emergencies, there's fire drills, you name it. Having the D&I agenda top of mind all the time is probably not a realistic expectation.
Gotcha.
What you got to do, though, is weave it into the culture of the organization. And if inclusion is part of your, cultural mission, it becomes a lot easier to kind of think about it more regularly and think about it as a business imperative. We want to be the employer of choice. We want to be the place that people want to work. And to do that, you've got to have a great culture. So even though it may not feel like the fire drill of the day all the time, having that competitive advantage is really something that drives a big impact for us.
We have someone on the webinar Yolanda, and she wants to know if the BRGs have corporate sponsorship.
Yes. So I'm assuming she means funding.
Well, really, I'm sorry, really C-level sponsorship.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So that would be that diversity champion that I mentioned earlier. So every one of our 6 BRGs has a C-level champion that supports them. And that champion's role is not only to be engaged and interacting with the BRG and providing support and leadership and advice, but also they're charged with being champions for diversity in general at Tyson. So we really want them to be able to be speaking up at the enterprise level and even externally, as many of them engage externally about inclusion and diversity from a C-level perspective. So we definitely have that level of sponsorship.
Excellent. You know, we've been fortunate enough to have quite a bit of I guess senior level HR types on the call today. I'm just looking through some of the names and titles here on some of the questions. And I have a great question from Michelle. She wants to know, what practices have you employed to attract diverse talent into Tyson? Now, we know you're doing this, and I think this is a very, very front-facing effort for you guys to really display, you know, how important diversity and inclusion is through supporting the initiatives of the National Urban League and kind of making yourself available for this dialogue on diversity conversation. But how are you guys attracting diverse talent? And specifically, what are you doing to move internal talent into opportunities? Any tools or process that you're following? This is coming from another diversity and inclusion professional that's just looking to kind of add value at their organization.
Yeah, so a couple of things, and definitely this is a good example of the type of things that we're doing. So when we developed our diversity strategy, we looked at 3 pillars. We looked at attracting talent, we looked at developing talent, and we looked at engaging talent. And notice I don't say retain, it's engage. And so when we talk about the attract pillar of our strategy, some of that was about telling our story more effectively. So we knew there was a lot of things we were doing internally that weren't necessarily making it outside of our 4 walls. So having a outward facing presence on our website that refers to the culture and specifically inclusion and diversity was a big deal for us. We needed to make sure we were telling our story externally so that people who might be looking to move companies would be, you know, drawn to Tyson from that standpoint. There's definitely the practical aspect of it. So the recruitment efforts that we do, we make sure that we are thinking about diversity top of mind as we think about our hiring slates that we present to hiring managers, whether we think about the career fairs that we participate in or the groups such as yours that we work with. That's definitely crossed top of mind for my TA team and Piper and the team that she works with. That's key. We have a talent acquisition resource aligned with each one of our BRGs. So many times they're going to events and participating in things where there's a recruitment opportunity. Maybe it's not an obvious one, but a lot of times our TA team will, you know, partner and join those things. I think fundamentally having a culture that is inclusive, that we just continue to drive is probably the biggest factor. So as people join the company, as people look to think about joining the company, they experience that inclusion. And we make sure that that's, you know, kind of top of mind. And then the development piece is interesting. So we've done we do a lot of development specific to our BRG groups and our underrepresented groups. We think about it all the time. How are we developing women? How are we developing people of color? We I think the next, probably the next evolution of this, and we're not there yet, even at Tyson, but the idea of having more metrics around development and the impact on diversity.
Okay.
As I said earlier, we measure the diversity, but there's probably a next level of impact that we could measure, which would be, I think, very helpful and very telling. We know what's working and what's not working. The last thing I'd say is everything that we do in the talent space, we look at through the lens of inclusion and diversity, and specifically bias. And so, for example, last year, we have been implementing a new talent review process. And in that process, as we were designing our approach to talent review, we were very cognizant of the inherent bias that goes into asking managers to pick high potential team members
Sure.
that they saw, doing more things, and all of the things that are sort of inherently flawed in that approach. So we've taken a very conscious approach to the development of that process and the training that goes along with it to try to mitigate some of the bias that just naturally comes with the territory. I think doing those sort of things are going to be, continue to be important.
And I'm 100% positive you're going to be successful because you've built a career on that type of work. You do that type of work, so that's great to have you kind of leading the charge, I would imagine, in that space. That'll be interesting. I hope to stay in touch to find out kind of how that plays out. So I have another question that came from the audience. They're curious. Do you guys provide training on multicultural competencies?
We do. Actually, it's interesting. We, just in the last year, we have expanded our, what was sort of a foundational diversity training to something that is more focused around multicultural competencies, as well as we have an unconscious bias education that is running currently. But the multicultural piece was interesting because it came up. Actually, I was participating in an integration team that was working on integrating a new acquisition that we had made recently that happened to be in multiple other countries.
Okay.
And as I was participating in some of the initial meetings of the leaders that were all on point for doing this integration, it occurred to me that within our Tyson team, there was a lot of leaders that really hadn't had a lot of exposure to working with other countries and other cultures.
Gotcha.
And so we very quickly kind of huddled and said, what can we do to help these folks be a little bit more, aware and educated on different cultures and how to best interact and how people work in different cultures. And we were actually able to roll out some training relative to that with the teams that are working on the integration, and then very shortly after working with our technology team who had recently brought on a team in India. And all of a sudden there was all these sort of different cultural influences happening to a company that has been historically pretty North America focused. So we do offer that, and we realize that it's not it's a learned thing. It's not, a lot of leaders haven't had to experience working within different cultures, so they just don't think about it.
I can tell you guys are thinking about it because just even on your website, I've never seen a website that was translated in so many different languages. And just to even think about that as an organization, I just thought it was a great add-on for you guys at Tyson.
We speak 35 different languages in our North American operation.
That's outstanding.
So it's, and many of our plant locations, you'll go to a plant location that speaks many of those languages. Okay. So it just, it's critical, right? Because you got people working in potentially a dangerous environment in some cases. They're around machinery and equipment. If you can't communicate with them, it's really critical. And we rely on teams within the team to support each other from that standpoint, that, you know, working people together with people who, you know, speak the same language, buddying people up, that sort of thing. But everything, you know, I mentioned scalability earlier, everything we do, we have to have that lens of, will this need to be translated into 35 languages? And if so, what does that look like?
You know, and speaking about that in general, it sounds like you guys kind of have a 360 approach to, I guess, their inclusion and diversity at Tyson, right? Mm-hmm. Have you experienced, and this is a question that came from Steve, have you experienced any roadblocks in your efforts to really just embrace diversity and inclusion at Tyson and kind of be a leader in the space?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think probably one of the biggest roadblocks is just day-to-day running the business, and keeping it, you know, keeping this to a priority level that is appropriate. I think that's a big one. Awareness is probably the second thing, that, you know, helping our team at large be aware of what inclusion looks like and what it doesn't look like, and doing the education we need. Nobody's trying to create an uncomfortable environment for anyone. It just happens, you know. Right. And so you got to help people be aware of that and understand what to do about it. I think, you know, even for the BRGs, I hear all the time about all of the things they have on their plates in their, you know, day job, and now they're trying to keep the BRG efforts alive and well. It takes a lot of commitment. We've got a very committed team, but there's definitely no shortage of hurdles. And we actually had a couple of our big customers come in a few weeks ago to speak to us about BRGs and diversity in particular. It was interesting to hear them, and they're, you know, I won't name names, but one's a very, very large retailer and the other's a very, very large fast food company. So you can probably guess who I'm talking about. But they even talked about some of the challenges of, you know, really helping diversity efforts in their organizations be prioritized and continue to be prioritized. So it's a day-to-day kind of focus.
You know, that leads me to a really good question that we got from the audience. And thank you so very much, Yolanda, for this question. She was asking it. And here's the thing, you just spoke about kind of how people juggle, you know, doing the work, the inclusion and diversity work at Tyson's with their regular everyday responsibilities as well. And she was wondering, are there any rewards or incentives for moving the needle with D&I or innovation with D&I internally?
Yeah, I would love to say, and this is part of what I was referring to about the metrics piece, I would love to get to a point where there was some aspect of our annual incentive program linked to this type of work. Right now, it's not formally, you know, we're not doing that formally. I think the people that are engaged in the BRGs and this kind of work are really doing it for a little bit recognition, a little bit of acknowledgement, hopefully some good experience and some good skill building. But there isn't a whole ton of recognition. So I think that that's something we could do a lot better with. And in fact, our leadership team has talked about that in terms of our diversity strategy. What do we need to do to better recognize people who are helping us, you know, move the needle? Because you know, a lot of these people are doing stuff even behind the scenes and helping with these things. We don't always see it. I think when we do a lot of publishing internally. So we have a Yammer channel. We try to post pictures and recognize names whenever there's an event. And, you know, we know who's been participating in that sort of thing, but nothing, I'd love it to be a bit more formal.
You know, it's interesting. I think as someone that's so involved in the work, like yourself, and this happens to me on occasion, sometimes you're so involved in the work that it's hard to look outside of it and see where it's going. Um, what do you see like moving forward in the world of D&I? What's new? Like, are there any new groups that kind of we need to focus in on, or is there any new programming that is really relevant in your mind for today?
You know, I go back to my earlier comments about inclusion versus diversity. I think that the definition of diversity just continues to expand and change, and it should. And I think that we're going to need to continue to think about what we're going to do to make sure that that is you know, top of mind, but that we're really driving a culture of inclusion. Because if you look at the generations coming into the workforce today, their definition of diversity is very different than mine might have been, or somebody else's, you know. I think that there's a point of view around the idea of corporations as being socially responsible for the betterment of the world and the environment and the people. And I think that that's where this is going from my perspective. Things like the CEO pledge, for example, now it's viewed as a good thing, and it's an extra thing. And I think those sorts of things are just going to become table stakes pretty soon.
Gotcha.
So
that'll be the day. Well, I'm looking forward to that day, right?
Yeah.
I do a thing called Help Me Eliminate My Job. I'm a diversity recruiter, and it'll be great when there's no need for the work that I do, when people are just out here doing it naturally. Okay, so listen, this has been a great conversation, an amazing conversation, but I'm sure there are people on the webinar that have interest in exploring opportunities at Tyson. So before we bring your colleague Piper Anderson in, just real quick, what do you look for in an employee at Tyson?
I think that I guess it's probably a very long answer. I think that when I describe what is core to us as an organization, it comes down to our team member behaviors. And we have 5 behaviors that we emphasize day to day. And those are the things that we do look for as we're thinking about bringing people into the organization. But there are also things we use to gauge our own performance on a day-to-day basis. So we have the 5 C's, very easy to remember: caring, candor, commitment, collaboration, and creativity. So if I had to boil it down, it'd be those 5 things.
Great. Well, 5 must be the number today, Deb, because I know Piper Anderson, Senior Manager of Talent Acquisition, is coming on to speak about the top 5 jobs that are currently on the slate over at Tyson. I just want to commend you for the work that you're doing and say thank you for taking the opportunity to share this time with the National Urban League UL Jobs Network. This has been outstanding. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so very much.
It's been great. Thank you for hosting, and thanks for the great questions.
Great. Piper, this is our day. This is the time. This is what everyone's been waiting for. They want to know the top 5 jobs available at Tyson right now. But also, I just wanted you also to touch base on skill sets that are currently in demand.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi, I'm Piper Anderson. I lead our enabling functions group from a talent acquisition standpoint. So everything from legal to accounting to sales, sustainability. That's a popular one. IT, HR, any of those areas corporate wide. I also have peers of mine that they lead more on the operations side. So operations leadership across prepared foods, fresh meats, and poultry. So I've been partnering with them, and you are going to see if you go to Tyson Careers, TysonFoodsCareers.com, and you see there's going to be 100+ jobs out there. So I'm going to highlight just a few that I know are high in demand at the moment and are active and live. but would love to, you know, if you want to look at kind of the full thing to visit our career site. But one that I wanted to start with is on the engineering side. So really these are engineering roles are really around, you know, focusing on the structural and architectural components of our complex structures. So our plant environments, those kinds of things. We've got a couple new plants coming for Tyson Foods. You know, any type of food processing experience is great, but not a requirement. Engineering is one. You know, it's here in our corporate office. So all these roles are here in our corporate office in Northwest Arkansas. We also have an office in downtown Chicago where Deb is located.
Okay.
We also have a corporate office in South Dakota where our fresh meats division is. And then we have plants all over the country, right? So on the engineering role, you know, typically an engineer, we're looking for about 5 years of experience in engineering, as well as a degree in engineering. We also have here in Northwest Arkansas a manager of accounting. So this is a really big leadership role in managing a team for the accounts payable function. And then also, you know, imaging, cash disbursements, and those types of things. We also, on that side, typically for the roles here at our corporate office, typically, you know, we're looking for a bachelor's degree with some sort of, you know, finance or accounting degree or related experience, right? And then typically, you know, at that manager level, looking for around 5 years of experience. Another one, we've got an opportunity in our compensation group, really focused on compensation optimization here at our corporate office, really being a proactive evaluator of current pay programs with an eye towards continuous improvement. So focusing on, you know, as we look at pay programs across our organization and bringing an innovative eye to that and the strategic initiatives that they're working through. Again, a senior analyst, probably somewhere 3 to 4 years of experience, and typically a bachelor's degree preferred. We also have a senior accountant within our tax group, and this is really this role is really in charge of supporting company-wide compliance for state and local tax credits and incentives by working closely with internal resources as well as state and local government. Again, looking for, you know, a few years of experience as well as a bachelor's degree or equivalent experience.
Wow, outstanding.
Yeah.
I know that we've shared a link with the audience that takes them directly to these opportunities as well. Yes.
Yeah. And we've got one other role that I wanted to highlight, and I think it's a really cool title, digital marketing guru, technologist. We are, from a technology perspective here at Tyson, we are well into robotics at our plant locations. People don't look at Tyson Foods as a technology hub. We actually, our chief technology officer, he was a chief technology officer at HP, originally from Arkansas, and went to and joined Tyson a couple years ago. So he was in Silicon Valley most of his career. So really, from a technology perspective, a lot of great innovative things happening here. And this role, marketing guru, is really going to be, you know, really focused on, you know, transforming technology here at Tyson Foods, which I think is very exciting. Most of our technology experience, you know, we like to see people that have had, you know, information systems degrees, computer science. You know, this role is really about finding the balance between, you know, finding a technology opportunity in the business and being able to drive that. So I think it's kind of a business and technology role, which I think is really interesting. Typically in a role like this, you know, we'd like to see somebody with, you know, 5 to 8 years of experience. So those are the key roles. Again, I know we've got on the network, we've got on the NUL network, we've got jobs posted out there as well as, and I think it'll route you to TysonFoodsCareers.com where we've got hundreds of opportunities. And these are more corporate roles, right? But we have tons of opportunities in our plant locations that are always in need. So I really appreciate the time.
You know what, Piper, you are in a good position because you have opportunities, and I think that's great. So
yes.
You're doing some exciting work over there. Thank you so very much for
yep.
sharing those opportunities with us.
Absolutely.
All right. So we've reached the time of the actual segment where we will speak about the raffle winner. I know it was announced that there will be a raffle, and the winner was chosen based on engagement from those who asked questions. And our winner today is Valamir Milker. Valamir Milker. So Valamir, to claim your prize, which I believe is a gift card, I want you to reach out to C. Moses, that's C as in car, Moses, M-O-S-E-S, at NUL.org to claim your prize. That is great. Listen, this has been an incredible, incredible conversation with Deb Sinta and then Piper Anderson chiming in. Can't say enough about what they bring to the table. I guess just in closing, I really want you guys to kind of stay locked in and check out the Digital Career Success Series throughout the year. You can stay, I guess, in touch and in tune by visiting nuljobsnetwork.com. There'll be a ton of information. UL Jobs Network on all the social media platforms is a great resource for information and really just to keep abreast on what's happening with the National Urban League and the National Urban League Jobs Network. You know, the conversation today was really just about diversity and inclusion, and we continue to kind of move forward. And I think one of the callers that spoke about kind of pushing the needle in the space of D&I. I think conversations like this are extremely necessary in allowing us to do just that, push the needle. So I'd like to commend the people at Tyson Foods for taking the baton and standing up as a leader in the space and sharing an hour of their day with us just to really talk about diversity and inclusion. So I hope you guys really have a respect for what it is that they do and their commitment to moving things forward in the D&I space. And with that being said, please visit the website because they presented some great opportunities, and it seems as if they are an exceptional organization committed to diversity and inclusion. I'd like to thank some people in closing out. Just the team here at the National Urban League, Clarissa Moses, Wanda Jackson, and their staff do a great job of putting these together bi-weekly, I believe. And I just want to commend them for allowing me to come in and be a part of this. This has been outstanding. My name is Kenneth L. Johnson. If you want to connect with me, I'm very, very active on LinkedIn, or you can visit the company website, eastcoastexecutives.com. And hopefully we'll be connecting moving forward, and you'll be able to sit in on some more of these events. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Congratulations to Valamir Milker and all the people that sent questions. You're the reason we do this. Thank you so very much. I appreciate your time.